But yeah, as I was saying, I just got everything put together in the file today, and I went up, took my cursor up to the top left to hit save. And just on my way up, literally everything went dark and the whole computer locked up.
Jeez.
And I was thinking I had lost everything, but I only lost about 20%. So I had to go back in and fill in, 20% worth of stuff.
Mm.
But so, yeah, I think today will be kind of unique and kind of different study on how God uses numbers. And we've already seen in past deals how the dark side uses numbers, 666 and all these different things. And so some of this might seem different to some, but just try to get what you can out of it, because I think there's some really interesting stuff and from the Lord. Is John still here? I don't see him on my deal.
I don't know, but Al, I'm going to have to cut out and come back in because my computer is frozen.
Okay.
So I'm going to go out and I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. I'll hold for a minute while you do that.
I'm not even, it won't even let me close it. Let's see. Yeah.
Can anybody see if John is gone too?
Gosh, it's really
I
acting.
can't see him unless you take the
Yeah.
the thing. What do you call it? Yeah. Your shared thing. Shared
Okay.
document.
I'll text him real quick. Mary Catherine, are you looks like Mary Catherine is frozen there.
Gematrias.
What's that?
Oh no, I'm just looking. Gematria. I've been hearing a lot about that on the back channels, Al.
Oh, I see John is there. I just had to go down lower. So you're on mute, John, if you didn't know. What was that, Bonnie? I'm sorry.
I've been hearing a lot about Gematria on some of the, Rumble and Telegram
Right.
sites.
Yeah.
There's certain amount of people that are assigning numbers to everything,
I know.
whether it's the name, the numbers, the amount of letters in their name, and the dates and everything. It's all numbers.
Yeah, it can,
So
as
it's
with,
going to be, yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear what you have to say.
oh,
Because
thank
I've
you.
been hearing about this for about 3 years now.
Yep. It's one of those things that, of course, there's a ditch on both sides, and
Mhm.
you can go in the
Yeah.
ditch, but it's like they say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's some bathwater, but there's a baby in there too,
Yeah.
So let's wait just one more minute, see if Mary Catherine can get back in. Ah, here she comes. I heard a ding. Hey, you're back, Mary Catherine.
Yeah. I had to shut it down just before I came on. So I don't, and then it did it again. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, something. I guess we can't blame it on the cold weather where you are.
No.
Okay, so I'll jump right in. Wikipedia gives the explanation. So today we're just looking at how God uses numbers, and there's a term for it to some degree is gematria. And really anybody that's using numbers as a code is considered gematria. But Wikipedia says gematria is the practice of assigning a numerical value to a name, word, or phrase by reading it as a number or sometimes using an alphanumeric cipher. So that can kind of sound complicated, but the main thing to realize is that with Hebrew and Greek, I think that must have been Lynn coming in. Can you hear us, Lynn?
Yes, I'm sorry. I woke up from a nap.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
You're not missing hardly anything. We're just starting here. So welcome and good to see you. So the letters of both Greek and Hebrew, they would use them as numbers. So if you take our, alphabet and use numbers, then you would apply A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and so all the way to Z, which is 26. So each number has a value. Well, same thing with Greek and Hebrew, long before, going way back to the beginning of time, they used their numbers their letters as numbers. And so you could do different things, but I just give a corny little example here, like a taxi cab. So if you were going to say, what's the numerical value of cab, you would add up C, A, and B. So 3, 4, 5, 6. So cab equals 6. So in a nutshell, that's gematria, is that each word has a value and that there is some hidden truth that God has placed in the scriptures when you look at certain numerical values, that just shows the glory of God and how omniscient and all-knowing and all-powerful he is, that he can create language and numbers and have it mean something in the scriptures. So Proverbs 25:2 says, it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the glory of kings is to search out a thing. So God sometimes hides things. We see that in the Old Testament with the prophets, they spoke in parables. God led them to speak in parables, and same thing with Jesus using parables. And so we have to use our mind and logic and try to figure out what the parables mean. And when we do, we can see hidden truths. So this is not any new concept. It's all through the Bible, things being slightly hidden. And then if we dig in a little bit, can find new truth. Now, as I say, there's always a ditch on either side. Is Bonnie still here? I'm not seeing Bonnie now. I don't know if anybody.
I'm here.
Oh, good.
I'm
Okay.
here.
Great. I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure we didn't lose anybody. Thanks, Bonnie.
No. You can't see me?
No, not on my little deal.
Oh,
I
okay.
I can only show the top 6.
Okay.
But anyway, okay, good. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm going to mute.
Okay. So Jesus is here speaking to his disciples, Mark 8:15, and he was giving orders to them, saying, watch out, beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And it's kind of interesting. It surprised me how many times I was seeing Jesus giving orders to the disciples. And, he wasn't that much older than them, but because he was in such a higher place, being God's son, having the fullness of the Spirit dwelling in him, he was their Lord, even as walking around on earth, and he didn't always take a higher thing, but there were some times when he would just tell them, and this is in the Greek imperative. which is a command. So when he says, watch out, beware, these are commands. So Jesus had all knowledge, God's fullness of spirit, and perfect discernment. So, he could do things like this. And he could sometimes, he's talking to Pharisees and he's telling him, you are of your father, the devil. But he doesn't want us to go around thrashing and burning because we don't have his same discernment. So for us, he says, you are all brothers and you have one who is your Lord and master. But with you, you're all brothers. And he says, for you, be careful that you don't offend one of these, my little ones. It'd be better if you put a millstone around your neck and got thrown in the sea. So he tells us, you don't know what is chaff and what is wheat, what is a tare. And they all grow up together, and it's only at the end where you can tell. And it's like Paul, he was completely not believing Jesus was the Messiah. And not only that, but he was hailing people out of synagogues to be beaten and killed. And yet, when God finally got a hold of him, he turned in to be the greatest Christian of all, really. He wrote the most amount of books. And, without Paul, we'd have so much less. But just think if you were one of the families that Paul had yanked, cousin Joe out and took him and had him beaten, you might want to have Paul killed. You might want to get 10 people together and jump out on the roadway and just beat him to a pulp with bats, but anyway, so God says, don't you do that, let me be the judge. I'm the one who knows the end from the beginning. And so, we can't do some of these same things that Jesus did because we don't have his discernment, at least not until we do. So anyway, he's saying, he's giving orders to them. Watch out, beware. Both those are in the imperative, which means it's a solid thing. And he's saying, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And this is right after Jesus had done the miracles and broke the bread and fed it out to the 5,000, the two miracles. And they had gotten in a boat and the disciples forgot to bring the baskets of bread along. So it says, verse 16, they began to discuss with one another, kind of like, uh-oh, what's he saying here? And they're saying the fact that they had no bread, they had forgotten to bring it. There's another parallel, I think in Matthew, where it talks about this, and it makes it a little clear they had forgotten to bring the bread, from the Jesus's breaking that they had left over, the 12 baskets. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, why do you discuss the fact that you have no bread? And so he's kind of going to chew them out a little bit here because they're his future apostles and he wants to have them start to see spiritually and start to understand things on a deeper level. And so he's kind of trying to call them up to a higher plane. And he says, do you not yet see or understand? Do you have a hardened heart? Having eyes, do you not see? So he's kind of, chewing them out just a little bit here. In love, of course. And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? So now he's going to kind of speak to them in a little bit of a parable and see if he can get them to see what he's really talking about. When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets of broken pieces did you pick up? And they said to him, 12. And when I broke the 7 for the 4,000 people, how many large baskets full of broken pieces did you pick up? And they said to him, 7. So these are numbers that the Jews in Jesus' day would have understood, because 12 is the number of the showbread. So anytime you're talking about bread and 12, they would have thought about the showbread in the temple, that every Saturday the highest order of priests would meet in the temple and eat from these showbread that came from the offerings of the people. And the showbread were divided into 2 groups. The high priest got to keep 5 of them for his family and those in his lineage. And then the other 7 were for the other priests. They would break out. In 2 Samuel, when David goes to he's running from the enemy, and him and his people fighting the battle go into the high priest and say, David says, let me have that some of the showbread. How much do you have under your authority? 5 loaves. And David was asking for that portion that the high priest would normally get, because David's in this war. But anyway, so 5 and 7, and so Jesus, it says, he was saying to them, do you yet understand? In the parallel passage in Matthew, Jesus explains that he meant the doctrine of the Pharisees. So the leaven had nothing to do with the bread, but it was the leavened doctrine of the Pharisees. And during Jesus' day and before, there was a big debate between the Pharisees and the Sadducees whether the showbread should be unleavened or leavened. And the Pharisees won out, and they forced the Sadducees to eat unleavened showbread, which of course wouldn't have tasted as good. It would have been, flat matzah, instead of nice raised bread that they could eat every Sabbath. But Jesus called this leavened teaching, even though their doctrine is that the showbread should be unleavened. Jesus calls it a leavened teaching. The other thing that Jesus says to watch out for, and really we see this today, we have the legalism of the Pharisees, who have certain unleavened bread teachings and other leavened teachings. And then we also have the leaven of Herod. Now, Herod is the political leaven. And Herod was appointed by Rome, and yet there were people that somehow thought Herod was going to rise up, and because he was half Jewish, I think on his mother's side, or no, maybe it was on his father's side. I can't remember. One of his parents were Idumean, but I think on his father's side, he was Jewish, pretty sure. Anyway, they thought Herod was going to save Israel. God bless Israel. We're the chosen. And Herod is, but they didn't really understand that Herod was set up by Rome, and he was not going to be, the political process was not going to be anything that we could lean on. And so it is in our day. The dark side puts up leaders on the left and leaders on the right, and they want us to get involved in that. But that's the leaven of Herod. And so Jesus says, beware of that. He commands it. And so here's how Jesus concludes in Matthew. Well, I guess I already read that. How is it that you do not understand? I did not speak to you concerning bread, but the leaven, and then they understood that he meant the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So that's just a little side point there. But So God and Jesus do, but it still shows how these numbers are symbolic and help explain certain parables. So God and Jesus do not want us to just go by everything on the surface, but to see the layered truths in God's word. And I have a video to show here, and as we go through this video, remember that the number 37 connects directly to Jesus. You'll see the number 37 in this video. And so I say, if you've not heard of this, this teaching of gematria and how numbers are used in the scriptures, try real hard to not have a big reaction and reject it. Instead, just listen and see if God may have some additional truth that maybe we did not know about before. Maybe this is 100% true, even if it seems a little strange, since you have not heard of that. And I think the way that television, they call it TV programming for a reason. And we've all been brought up on TV. And so there's a lot of things that television has a way of drawing a circle around stuff and then saying everything within this circle is true and good, but anything out here, like speaking in tongues, oh, that's weird. That's crazy. Who would do that? But to God, it isn't weird, and so we're in the family of God, so we don't go by what TV says. So first, I want to quote, this is a book, when I first came to the Lord, I would look into, and I still have it, and it was written by Jerry Lucas and Del Washburn. I think it was published in 1977. Some of you who were older might remember Jerry Lucas. He was a star basketball player for the Boston Celtics. Anyway, he's really a cool guy and was a Christian and was kind of somebody as a new Christian I could look up to. So here's a little couple pages from that book where it's called Theomatics, and it just has to do with theo means God, and then matics like mathematics. So numbers and God in the scriptures. So they have a whole chapter on Jesus and the number 37, a whole section, I mean. And I'm going to read part of that here. So they say at the beginning of this chapter, we showed how the many references to the birth of Christ were all structured on multiples of 111. 111, of course, speaks of Jesus. But there is another number which also speaks of Jesus. It is the number 37. 37 is a prime number, which means that it can only be divided by itself or 1. It is also the base number on which all of the references to Christ are structured. So that's kind of interesting that mathematically this number 37 is really connected to Christ. So they go on. If we were to divide 111, because they just got through saying up here how 111 is all in the birth of Christ. They see that a lot. So if we were to divide 111 by 3, the result would be 37. In other words, 37 times 3 equals 111. For this reason, many of the features to be presented in the remainder of this chapter will only be divisible by 37 and not by 111. However, everything that is divisible by 111 is also divisible by 37. You will understand this perfectly as you read. An excellent example of a design using the number 37 is found in those verses that speak of the Messiah. Twice in the New Testament, reference is made to the Messiah. Here are those features. And as I say, if you don't understand this right away, try not to zone out and close your mind. Just try to get what you can, because it'll start to come together as we go a little further on. So when Jesus was speaking to the woman by the well, she said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, the one called Christ. So Jerry Lucas in this book with his Del Washburn, they take and they add up each of these letters, the numerical value of the phrase Messiah is coming, the one called Christ. And that adds up to 3,700, or 37 times 100. So just interesting that it's this number 37. And excuse these next few, because when early on I was writing notes in this book for some reason. I don't know why I did this, but I broke down 42 to 6 times 7, and then I broke down 25 to 5 times 5, but don't let that distract you. So in John chapter 1, Andrew declared to Simon Peter, we have found the Messiah. So those words, we have found the Messiah, you add those letters up and it adds up to 37 times 42. And then they say, but the important fact is that if you just take the word Messiah by itself, it produces the same number 37. So the Messiah adds up to 37 times 25. So before moving on, let us show you one more example involving the number 8. The name Jesus, which has a theomatic value of 888, so you can see that right down here. The name Jesus, Jesus, adds up to 37 times 8 times 3, which is 888. And that's kind of incredible, really, because 8 is the number of new beginnings. And so for Jesus' name to mean 888, that's kind of the, and by the way, the Jews were real big on deciphering these numbers going all the way back. It was part of their hidden knowledge that they had in the scriptures. Anyway, so it says, notice that both of those names are not only multiples of 37, but also of 8. So when they say names, they just mean words. So Jesus is 37 times 8 times 3. Christ is 37 times 8 times 5. You put them all together, Jesus Christ is 37 times 8 times 8. And I promise this is all leading somewhere. So don't worry. Just try to get what you can and see that these are kind of amazing coincidences at the very least. So now here it goes into Jesus and the Godhead. A lot of these different places, you know, they a Godhead is really not the best translation. Really, it's God essence or God's nature. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. But when you add up his eternal power and Godhead, that adds up to 37 times 84. So again, you see this 37 with Christ. Colossians 2:9. I forget what that says. Oh, it's talking about Christ as the, well, hold on just one second. For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. So the word Godhead is really God essence. You can see that NAS says, for in him all the fullness of the deity dwells in bodily form. So those that have a certain theological bent want to translate that Godhead or call it the Trinity, whatever. But the Greek word is God essence, God's image. But anyway, let's just look at that word. It's theotes, theotetos, and that Christ is the image of God. And that adds up to 37 times 26. And then he says, what is probably the most outstanding reference to Christ being a part of the Godhead. And again, it doesn't say he's a part of the Godhead. But anyway, is 2 Corinthians 4:4, where it says, Christ, who is the image of God. And so that adds up to 111 times 35. And as we know, 111 is 37 times 3. So here we have the same thing. 37 times is there when it's talking about Christ as God's image. And then the most distinct portion from the above feature is the words image of God. These words have a theomatic value of 1,369, which adds up to 37 times 37. So image of God, that's what these two Greek words here mean. That adds up to 37 times 37. And I didn't check everything in all these deals, but I did check some of them. And this one, I went into my Greek. There's a Greek tool that you can go in and add up different words. And so I went in, and sure enough, image, this word right here, icon, image adds up to 885. And then the next phrase, theou, which is translated of God, that word adds up to 484. So you add those two together, and it's 1369, which is 37 times 37. So now that we have just had a little on the number 37 being connected to Christ, try to remember that as we watch this video. He's calling it a mind-blowing numbers video, and I kind of agree with him. It's kind of mind-blowing. So let me stop sharing that screen and try to do this. Okay, where is it hiding? Oh, here it is. Oh, and then I gotta there's some other trick to this. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second here. I got to hit share sound. There we go. Okay. Can everybody see this on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, stay with me for 1 second because I want to play the volume and then ask you if you can hear the volume. So this title of this video is Truth Project 37. So they're kind of, you can see it has a real focus on the number 37. So I'm going to play this and I'm hoping you'll hear the volume.
In order to start presenting the evidence in this series.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. Oh, perfect. Okay, so he's going to start in. I think you'll find this really amazing. I really do. And so try to focus. And if you ever want me to stop and go back, or because they do so much information so fast sometimes, but I can always send you this video or link it in the thing. But so let me just go back just a little.
In order to start presenting the evidence in this series, there needs to be a brief introduction to the Hebrew language. The Hebrew language is read from right to left. Numbering the alphabet in the order the letters appear is called the ordinal value.
And that goes
The
way
Hebrew
back.
language uses its letters for numbers. There are no separate characters for numbers.
So this isn't some wild, creation by wild people on the internet. This is just biblical facts that from the time of Moses, they used the letters as numbers.
Above are the values. The Hebrew language uses its letters for numbers. There are no separate characters for numbers. Above are the values of each of the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. This value is called its standard value.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Below are the letters from Genesis 1:1 lining up to their corresponding numbers. Now all the numbers will soon be arranged according to the sum of each word. When adding each value of each of the words, we get the number 2701. Why is this significant? Where else can this number be found? We will now look at another verse that speaks of the creation of the earth.
By wisdom, God created the heavens and the earth. Proverbs 3:19.
We will now look at the word wisdom as it applies to creation. The standard value of the word wisdom is 73. The ordinal value is 37. The product of 37 times 73 happens to be 2701. This is the exact value of Genesis 1 verse 1. Can this be just a coincidence? It would be fair to think so, but it does not end here. The only factors other than one that can equal 2701 are 37 and 73. 73 is an odd number. It is the 37th odd number. 37 and 73 are reflective numbers. Notice how these numbers are mirroring each other. 37 is the 12th prime number. Mirroring both numbers, we see that 73 is the 21st prime number. Now taking the 21 and 12, its reflective number, what value do we obtain by squaring both numbers? We have 144 and 441. These also are reflective numbers. Again, 37 times 73 gives us 2,701. Making a reflective number from 2,701 gives us the number 1,072. When adding the two numbers, we amazingly obtain 3773. Multiplying these numbers yields 2,895,472. If adding just the individual numbers, we get the number 37. If we separate the number by its commas and add them, we get the number 1369, or 37 times 37. Now observe the incredibly large number while multiplying each word value of the Genesis verse. Adding each digit of this number gives us the number 73. Now separating this number into hundreds gives the number 2,701. It will take a very long time to discover any other number that has the same properties. Now we will look at some of the individual phrases in Genesis 1:1.
God, the heavens, the earth.
Adding these phrases equals 777, or 37 times 21. Also, this calculation.
God, the heavens.
Adding this phrase gives us 888, or 37 times 24.
In the beginning, God.
We see 999, or 37 times 27.
In the beginning, God created the heavens.
We obtain the number 1998.
That one's kind of a weird one, isn't it?
This is very interesting.
Yeah, and there's so much information. It's like I'm just seeing it the second time now, and it's like I'm getting a lot more out of it. But he goes through it so fast, it's hard to take it all in, you know, but so this is a number we'll get into later too, that God can use that number also. You know, God owns all the numbers.
We will now look at the third verse about God's creation, this time in the New Testament. Keep in mind, this is a separate language altogether. The Greek language also uses its letters for numbers.
The heavens and the earth. Mark 13:31.
The Greek value of this verse is 1011. At first glance, there is nothing significant, until we add every other number in the Hebrew text of Genesis. This value adds to 1011. Separate languages working in harmony together. In geometry, these are called perfect triangles. Triangle 1 has 1 unit. The second triangle has 3 units. Triangle 3 has 6. The fourth has 10. Triangle 5 has 15. What could we find in the 37th perfect triangle? We have 703 units. Notice how a hidden 73 is separated by a 0.
And let me just say, in Gematria, there's a rule that says you drop the 0 because it has no meaning. So really 703 is the exact same as 73. And that's not just some weird rule that somebody created, but it's how Gematria is figured. You don't count the 0 for Gematria purposes. So 37, 703, 73, you can see that mirror connection.
In seeing this number from the 37th triangle, does it relate to Genesis 1:1? 703 happens to be the value for
And the earth.
After seeing this, can we see anything significant found in the 73rd triangle?
And when they say the 73rd triangle, that means it has a base of 73. And then it, of course, goes all the way up to 1. So I think he'll get into, but the 36th triangle number is 666. So when you have a base of 36, you end up having 36 666. So that's a perfect triangle also, that number.
The 73rd triangle happens to have 2,701 units. Remember that this is the value of the full verse of Genesis 1:1. Now can we see any interesting geometry with these 2 triangles? Watch what happens when we invert the 37th triangle and overlay it on the 73rd. The 37th fits perfectly, unit by unit, on the 73rd. Amazingly, the upper corners of the 37th is on the 37th row. How many units are left over when looking at the 3 orange triangles?
Now, this is a little bit weird, but it's showing, is there some spiritual insight that we can grab, the world locked into the 666 system, whatever, there's things truth that I think the Lord wants us to draw out of these things. But anyway, I'll just let her go.
John 1 verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The verse adds up to 3,627. This number creates a pillar that fits perfectly under the Genesis triangle. If there was 1 unit missing, this would not be possible. Adding all the units together gives us 6,328. Watch what happens when we rearrange these numbers. Number of times Yahweh appears in the Old Testament. The value Jesus Christ in Greek. If we were to square the value of Genesis 1:1, we will get the number 7,295,401. Adding between the commas gives us 703. 703 squared gives 494,209. 494 plus 209 is 703. For the next portion of the presentation, we will be dealing with very large numbers. You will be shown how the calculation of pi is found in Genesis 1:1. Watch very carefully.
Now, pi, probably most people know, but that has to do with, builders and different people. And I promise I'm not the pro on a lot of this, so feel free to correct me if I say something wrong. But pi, so pi, is the term for 3.14, and then the digits just keep on going. And what that number is, I forget who discovered it way back when, but it allows you to, if you have a circle and you can measure half the diameter of the circle, that is pi, and you can get the whole diameter of the circle from that. If I'm saying that wrong, feel free to correct me.
The radius?
Yeah. What was that? You're on mute, Mary Catherine.
Oh,
Go ahead, Bonnie.
I'm trying to remember from
Yeah, I think it's
school.
I think it's
Is it the radius
yeah, it gives you the
times
radius.
pi?
It's
It's the
pi,
radius
pi
times
r
pi.
square.
Pi r square, that's right.
Pi and the radius squared gives you the
The whole area.
The circle.
now I can't remember. Pi r squared gives you the circumference or the
Circumference.
Yeah, I think that's what it gives you, the circumference. And the radius of a circle is just halfway through, right? When you draw it.
correct.
The
Okay.
yeah,
So if you have
yeah.
the radius
From the middle out to the edge.
Right.
Yeah. So once you figure it's easy to have a circle, but it's hard to measure that ever. If you have a ruler, you can't go around very well. So you just take halfway point on the circle, times it by pi. and
Pi
then
r
that
square.
And the radius.
Yeah.
Right.
This
times
your
it by
square.
that radius squared, and then that gives you the circumference.
Right.
But anyway, so pi is an amazing number, and it just they've got computer digits where now it just goes out into the, hundreds of thousands, I think, because it's like 3.14, but then it just keeps going on and, with digits. But so this will get kind of amazing, this part here too. So just wanted to explain what pi was. So they're saying just showing you take all this and divide it, and it gives you the number pi.
The following is Jesus Christ written in Greek. Jesus is 888. Christ is 1,480. So the total value of Jesus Christ is 2,368. Adding the individual digits of Jesus Christ gives us the number 37. If we were to take the Hebrew value of Genesis 1:1 and subtract the value of the Greek Jesus Christ, we get 333, or the following. Amazingly, the parameter of the triangle we created just so happens to be 333. God created the earth in 6 days. There are 24 hours in a day. 6 days times 24 hours equals 144. If we add the first 140 for digits behind the decimal of pi, we find the number 666.
The revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John.
This verse equals 18,865.
And that's a big verse. That's Revelation 1:1. It's really a whole new book and a whole new way of bringing forth truth in the book of Revelation. So this is Revelation 1:1, the entry of that.
We have seen many numbers in groups.
Kind of like you have to see that twice, just what are the odds when it just shows God's amazing structure.
We have seen many numbers in groups of 3. See how 37 is the main component of these numbers. What are the prime numbers that match this number sequence? The following are the first prime numbers up to 10,000.
And remember, a prime number is only divisible by itself and by 1. So here they're saying the 22, the 333rd prime is here. So that's what they're adding that all up. So.
these primes gives us 37,073. These are the first 3,000 decimal places of pi. We will number what position each of the numbers of 3 are found.
So again, these are the digits of pi. You can see up here in the left corner, 3.14. And they have computers now that can just go out and out. And so here's where the 666 is found, and here's where the 444 is found in the 1600th and 98th digit. The 333 is found. So they're just adding that, those numbers where they're found in the pi sequence.
When we add these numbers, we appear to come to a number that is not of importance. Yet, if we create a reflective number as seen in the beginning of this presentation, we discover a staggering outcome.
So he's just, they're taking these two words and saying, if you use these two numbers, what is the area of a triangle that has a base of 74, truth, and a height of 64, truths and truth? What would be that triangle, the area? And, here's where they get a little of their doctrine in, but just remember the Greek word is the deity, not the Trinity. It's God's nature. Jesus is the image of God. He's not the 1/3 of God. It doesn't say that. But you can still get the truth of what they're saying here, because here's the Greek word. So. And we believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, so nothing wrong there. So pretty amazing, you know, so many different things. But I wasn't going to play the whole thing, but I will hopefully remember to add it in the video part. So let's go back to our other thing. Wasn't that kind of amazing though? It kind of really makes you. So I can see I'm going to have to really zoom to get through this. I'll probably skip some stuff, but so we looked at theotes, which is translated Godhead in some, and we see his eternal power and divine nature is how other translations translate it. And then speaking of Christ, it says, for in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead, which is kind of a bad translation, but for in him all the fullness of deity. He gave, you know, the Bible says he gave Jesus the Spirit, not by measure. And he is the exact representation of God's likeness, it says, of his, however that is, Hebrews 1:3. So we saw there how God uses numbers, and we've clearly seen how the dark side uses numbers. So like with the pandemic, and the number 666 is often encoded in their chosen dates. I'm going to zoom through some of this, but so Clade X was a big corporate get together in May 15th, 2018. This comes from Wikipedia. And it was a pandemic modeling exercise by Johns Hopkins University. And remember, 2018, nobody thought anything about a pandemic. You know, everybody was living life as usual, and you know, it wasn't like anybody would have, you know, thought, oh, what are these dumb guys doing, you know, with this pandemic stuff. But anyway, they knew what was coming, and so they set up their big corporate meetup with Johns Hopkins, and there were a bunch of other people, and a bunch of the Bill Gates kind of people have always been tied right in with Johns Hopkins. Well, so that was on May 15th, 2018. And amazingly, the World Health Organization declared a worldwide pandemic exactly 666 days later. Now, this Clade X, it was a pandemic modeling exercise, you know, and so it was named after this hypothetical infective agent, Clade X. In the simulation, the hypothetical pandemic resulted in 900 million simulated deaths. So they had all this laid out, how massive deaths were going to come about in this pandemic. And then amazingly, 666 days later, but really it's not a coincidence. So you can see here, May 15, 2018 for Clade X, and then WHO declares on March 11, 2020, that's exactly 666 days apart. So it's showing you they know what's coming. They lay things out. They do it for occult reasons and other reasons. A shout out to those in the know. And, you know, you'll never see any of this on Fox News or CNN. So they're not worried about anybody catching them. So then another one is, oh my, Omicron. And Omicron is an anagram for moronic. If you change the letters around a little bit, it spells out moronic. And so they kind of have fun with some of these things. Well, this was a new variant that came out, supposedly, that it was first dubbed B11529. Well, when you add those numbers, it adds up to 18, which of course 6 plus 6 plus 6 adds up to 18. So they always have these little numbers encoded in what they do. Well, this new Omicron variant was reported by the CDC on November 26th, November 26, 2021. And previously on January 30th, 2020, following the recommendations of the emergency committee, the WHO declared the COVID-19 outbreak constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. So this was PHEIC, you know. Well, they did this on January 30th. So from these two dates, January 30th to the day they declared this new virus variant, this oh golly gee Omicron, well, of course, that happens to be a span of 666 days. Here's that news article from cdc.gov. On November 26th, the World Health Organization classified the new variant a variant of concern and named it Omicron. And on November 30th, 2021, the United States also clarified it as a variant of concern. So you put those two dates, 1/30/2020, right here, January 30, 2020, and 11/26/21, and it gives you 666 days. So time and time again, we see they're encoding their events and their things because these people are building out the 666 world government. So everything they do is with this in mind. And then I say, and because the UK was used in the travel ban ritual, remember where they had a ban on travel, they claimed that on Saturday, 11/27/21, there were 2 cases of Omicron, this new infected thing, with people in the UK. So this was on 11/27. The first cases of the original coronavirus were confirmed in the UK. So this isn't the US, but in the UK on January 31st, 2020. And so, of course, these 2 cases with Omicron comes exactly 666 days later. So the UK on January 31st, right here, 2020, and then the new cases of Omicron that they, you know, the new variant on 11/27/21 is 666 days later. So at some point you say, boy, these are sure coincidences. All 4 of these 666 dates with their health vaccines and everything they're bringing in.
You just have to wait.
Travis Scott concert. A lot of you heard of that. It was, I guess, the biggest mass shooting in the US history. Very demonic, loads of satanic symbolism, lost lives. Remember that during the Old Testament, Israel's times, the false gods required human sacrifices, and they require them today also. This concert was a mass shooting that just happened to be 666 months and 6 days from the date the Church of Satan was created. So again, we see this 6666 days. Something had to happen on that event, on that date number. New York Times, 11/27. I can't remember what the year is here. Probably would have been 19 maybe. But the New York governor calls state of emergency, giving her power over all the hospitals, reporting on fears of the new Omicron variant. So they kind of get us like chickens, just running back and forth, oh my, look over here. No, it's over here. But they also always encode their numbers into things. So this is from the New York Times. Rates of positive tests in New York have crept up recently, even as vaccination rates have improved. Oh, how amazing. With some countries recording positivity rates of more than 10%. In the 2 weeks before Thanksgiving Day, the daily average of new cases reported in New York rose 37% to 6666. So they just happened to wait until it hit 6666 to, give us this news. More than 56,000 people died of the disease in New York. 56 is another big number that was always seen in the COVID thing. Here's just another one, Microsoft, Bill Gates patent 060606. Remember in Gematria, you drop the zeros, so it's just 666. And this was a patent filed in Redmond, Washington by Microsoft, and it has to do with human body activity used with cryptocurrency to award cryptocurrency to the body that is activated. So you would have like a chip or a bio implant, and then you would get credit for doing this or credit for doing that. And you would, get digits on your chip. Well, that's number 666. And you can be sure that's not a coincidence. Here's just another one, coronavirus. Well, the word corona means crown. And we saw above, the pandemic was declared on March 11, 2020 by the WHO. Well, Queen Elizabeth, corona, she has the crown that now Prince Chuck has, or King Chuck. Her death was September 8th, 2022, just happened to be 9/11 days apart. So you see that here, 3/11/22, 9/8/22, 9/11. So they, you can say, oh, wow, that's a coincidence, but no, I don't think it is. It's, they do their things in their time. And she wore the crown. And so anyway, I say, so I promise I'm going somewhere with all this. So now we're switching phase to the number 33. We see that used very often in the occult, but there's certain other things. There's an astronomical cycle that goes way back to how the Jews would, they used a lunar calendar. And so they had to be very aware of how the moon rotated around the earth and how, because the solar calendar is 365 days, where a lunar calendar would be 11 days shorter because it's 29 and a half or something. I can never remember all these things, but and so every year they had to, or every 3 years, they had to add a month to keep it in sync. And so there's a 33-year cycle where the positions of the earth, the sun, and the moon return to their original positions. So it's kind of interesting, but everything comes back into a certain cycle every 33 years. Because the earth and the moon both have their own orbits, which means that their positions in space naturally change as time goes by. But after 33 years, they return. And so now let me go to phase, different phase here with, I don't think I'll get all the way through here, but let's just watch a little of this video. Give me 1 second. Okay, thanks for your patience. Just 1 second here. I'll try to do this share screen again. So this is just showing how the dark side uses the number 33. And this will have a reason that we'll get to in just a minute. So we won't see all this. This is another video that has just amazing information, but so I'll hit play here. Somebody give me a thumbs up if they can hear the, oh, I forgot to do that. Yeah, sorry. I have to tell it a certain way to, oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound here. And you can see this, right? The screen where my cursor's flying around.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great.
Effort, and I invite your participation. I believe the time is ripe to reveal what has been hidden for so many centuries and bring this body of knowledge to public attention for the benefit of all. After reading The Lost Symbol, I was intrigued with Washington, D.C. It's a city overflowing with esoteric symbolism. Zooming in from space as we can in Google Earth, let me point out a few landmarks. Here's the White House, Capitol Building, Washington Monument, Jefferson Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, and the Pentagon just across the Potomac. Rick Campbell has uncovered much of the underlying geometry of the city on his informative site dcsymbols.com. He sees the following diagram in the streets and interconnection of monuments. The geometry consists of a pentagram over a cube, all contained within an overarching pyramid. Each one of these shapes carries a meaning we'll be exploring. We'll see later in Egypt how the pentagram symbolizes the microcosm.
So the upside down pentagram, you know, we're always told that we were the God bless America and, you know, our forefathers, you know, built this. That's kind of the TV John Wayne picture, but the reality is there were very occult, demonic people in control of the money even back then that moved our capital from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. And there they, a pentagram, you know, comes from Venus. It's one of the strongest occult symbols that they use in witchcraft. But anyway, so the city is laid out, there's streets and these different things, the White House, all these different places, Pentagon, are laid out in certain things. But I'm going somewhere with this, so try to just hold for a minute.
Which is everything in the universe, human scale or smaller. The cube is a recurrent esoteric symbol for the body that we'll be running into all over the world. I found a pair of 3, 4, 5 triangles between the cube and the pyramid. Turning off the cube layer, you see the rectangle surrounding the White House is also made up of a pair of interlocking triangles, this time with 5, 12, 13 proportions. 3, 4, 5 and 5, 12, 13 are the first two Pythagorean triplets. As you'll begin to appreciate, Pythagorean knowledge figures prominently in decoding this mystery. Where have we seen an unfinished pyramid before? On the back of the dollar bill, of course.
So they're just equating the layout of Washington, D.C. with the dollar that has in the occult, they say that this is the all-seeing eye of Lucifer, or Horus, the all-seeing eye, and that their foundation is all built, but it will only be when the Antichrist takes control that the eye is set on the top of the pyramid. So this eye is like has big
If we
meaning.
illuminate the DC pyramid,
And so now he's saying if you put this triangle on top of the DC pyramid, right behind it is exactly where the biggest Freemason building in the world, the most important Freemason building is, showing that they are seeing that as their all-seeing eye.
with the same all-seeing eye of providence, we are directed to a specific building. Is this the eye of providence we are looking at, or its older incarnation as the eye of Horus? Either way, what is behind the all-seeing eye of the sun? It's the headquarters of Scottish Freemasonry, which goes by many names, including the Supreme Council, Mother Council of the World, and House of the Temple.
So this is what really controls the world, the banks, every corporation. And of course, they're controlled by higher entities and higher groups of money and witchcraft and other things. But this is a big focal point.
Building is loaded with Egyptian symbolism, with a 13-step unfinished pyramid on top, just like on the dollar bill, and 2 giant sphinxes flank the entrance out front. The architect John Russell Pope modeled the 1911 building after the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, now a part of Turkey. As one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, it served as tomb of King Mausolus, which is where we get the word mausoleum. The House of the Temple correspondingly serves as tomb of Albert Pike.
Now that's pretty bizarre. This Albert Pike, and you see his 33 right here,
Mhm.
33rd level Mason. That's the highest level. He was, like Mr. Top Freemason of all time. Well, they buried him underneath this building. So that shows you how old, he is, how important he is to their thing.
Sovereign Grand Commander, Confederate General, and the most famous Freemason of his times. Pike wrote Morals and Dogma, the handbook formerly given to new members up until 1974, which details the 33 ranks of Freemasonry. The House of the Temple is where the climax in the lost symbol takes place. Campbell shows how the elevation was designed ad quadratum, which is Latin for by the square. Ad quadratum is a sacred design template we'll see employed in the District of Columbia itself and at Chartres Cathedral. The sunburst above the entry is at the center of the square, and the top corner marks the symbolic apex of the unfinished pyramid. The bottom corner presumably marks the crypt where Pike is interred. Scottish Freemasons are really into the number 33. There are 33 columns in the House of the Temple that are 33 feet high.
So that's what I want you to get from this little portion, is just how the number 33 is so important to them.
This is the place where a hard-working initiate can attain the highest 33rd degree from the 33 members of the Supreme Council. 33rd degree Masons are often found in positions of power. Many
So you see Truman, Gerald Ford, FDR, all George Washington, all Freemasons.
presidents of the United States were
Roosevelt.
Freemasons. The Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania has a permanent exhibit featuring the portrait and signature of each of these presidents, with a record of their Masonic careers. It is difficult to verify Masonic membership because some members do not make their involvement a matter of public record. However, each lodge keeps its own records. I find it interesting that George Washington, Harding, Eisenhower, Carter, and the younger Bush all chose to be sworn into the office of the president with a hand on this Masonic Bible dating from 1770. One has to be male and believe in a supreme being to seek membership as a Scottish Freemason. They insist their fraternity is not a religion, although atheists are ineligible for membership. Freemasonry is not a secret society, but members are strongly admonished under pain of death not to reveal core secrets. Much of what happens inside the house of the temple has been pieced together by outside researchers in recent years.
So that's how they can control across all corporations and everything. When they come out and say, all corporations, you got to wear masks, you all got to do this. They all follow the marching orders because they're all controlled and owned by people that have sworn to secrecy in these things. And so whether they're presidents of the US or whatever, they're not looking for our best interest, but they're having to obey orders from on high that say, do this,
And this has been brought forward in Dan Brown's book, The
But I think that's all I wanted to show there. I thought there was more on the 33s, but let's see. I've got a chat. Yvette says yes, but I don't know what that's about. Let's see here. Okay, so I've got 15 minutes left, so I'll buzz down. Does this show up okay?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I just say here, God also uses 66. Jesus said there'd be signs in the sun and the moon, talking about the end times. And Luke 21:25, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. So they called the planets wandering stars back in those days. So one of the planetary signs is Pluto's return. Now, Pluto is kind of a dark planet. Let me just read this real quick. Pluto is called the god of the underworld, the god of the departed spirits. The earlier name for Pluto was Hades. Now, this comes around every 248 years. So it's not very often that Pluto, which would be a sign when it came, well, it came in 1776, which we say, oh, hey, that's when we were, good old USA was created. And I don't mean to sound negative, but I'm just saying how it's kind of portrayed, July 4th, light fireworks and stuff. But 1776 was also the date the Illuminati was founded. And they're the ones in control of, who starts what country when. So they gave us the same year for the country birth. And so the last time Pluto was here was in 1776. So isn't that amazing that this planet, which is named after the god of the underworld, is now returning, and it's kind of a long story, but its return date is sometime between 2022 and 2024. So that's one of the signs of the stars. And then what about the sun and moon? Are there any signs there that we're in the end times? And then Jesus said, talked about these signs, and you say, well, sign of what? Well, let's look at the context. So Luke 21:24, Jerusalem we trampled underfoot by the Gentiles. until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And then there will be signs in the sun and moon, so and so. So the signs, it's pointing to one of these two or three things that all may be right about the same time. But one, the times of the Gentiles being fulfilled. Two, the time of the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great power and glory, which also can, be the rapture ahead of time. It's all in this same time, 7-year time frame, just about. And then, but when these things begin to take place, these signs, lift up your heads because your redemption is drawing near. So when you see things going on, remember that means your redemption is drawing near. Now, speaking of signs from God and God using the number 666, as we saw recently in another video, the great American total solar eclipses appear to be a sign over America. 6,666 days apart. I mean, what are the odds of that these two total solar eclipses, that's when you totally block out the sun, 666 days apart, causing an X mark over the America. So here's a picture of that, this big X over America. This comes from Gematrinator 85. You can see August 21st, the eclipse comes across here, and then April 8th, 24, the eclipse goes across here. Both of them form a big X, and they're the two great American solar eclipses. Now, this X is also a giant Hebrew letter, Tan, over the nation. So, in the place of the X, the spot just happens to be a little area known as Little Egypt. It's like God is getting ready to bring judgment, or, what is this saying? It could be saying that America has been the ruler of the world for all these years, but now the 666 is going to be starting to take over during this time period. And it's interesting that during this time period, we're seeing all open borders. We're seeing where crime is now legal. You can go into department stores in Seattle, load up your thing. I mean, it's lawlessness is coming in. And it's not like we aren't smart enough to stop a train. If you've seen these trains coming with all the, they're unloading all the prisons and illegal aliens, whatever. And of course, some of them are good people that, just happen to be living in another country where they can't they're, shutting off the food and whatever. So they're willing to jump on a train and try to come to the US. But the main point is to see the overarching why they're doing it. Why do these rulers, these high Illuminati people, why is now the borders, and it's happening in parts of the UK also, immigrants flooding in, and you could, you could say, oh, well, we were immigrants and all those kind of stories, but if you have a house and 70 immigrants move in and then, rape and beat you up and throw you out, it didn't really do any good to have that many. So we've always been a country of controlled immigration, but now they're purposely throwing the doors open. Like I say, they know how to stop a train if they wanted to, but it's all being guided. And same thing with the laws being broken down. All this is happening during this time of the X. So the dark side sees these things and they know it's time to make their move. And that the middle of this X happens to be a place in Chicago, Illinois called Little Egypt. that's where this crosses. Or maybe that's in the other one. I can't remember which one that is. No, I think that's in this upper one. But anyway, I'm going to run out of time, so I got to get to the climax here. Going to skip some of this. So NASA, they're a part of the beast system. National Aeronautics and Space Administration. That gematria of those English letters adds up to 666. When you spell out the numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 35, 38, 40, 50, the very first number that adds up to 666 is 82. And that's kind of interesting because, so here's 82. You can see the sum of all those letters in reverse Sumerian cipher adds up to 666. It's the first number to add up to 666 in any of the main ciphers. That comes from Gematrinator 85. Well, it just happens to be 82 lunar phases between these two eclipses. So from Monday, August 21st, 17, the first great solar eclipse, to the second great solar is exactly 82 lunar phases. So it's just another 666 sign. So now back to 33 for a conclusion. This comes from Lambda YouTube. And it actually comes from a guy named Mr. Jake, who is commenting. So you've all heard of the Black Monday stock market crash.
Mhm.
Wikipedia says Black Monday, also known as Black Tuesday in some parts of the world, due to the time zone differences, was the global, severe, and largely unexpected. At least they tell us it was unexpected, but they knew. Stock market crash on Monday, October 19th, 1987. Worldwide losses were, and whenever there's a big crash, they always pull their money out at the top, and then everybody else's money goes down. So it's all the mom and pops that lose all the money. So this 1.71 trillion was all the regular people that don't have the inside scoop on what Wall Street is doing. So it says the severity of the crash sparked fears of an extended economic instability or even a reprise of the Great Depression. Well, it just so happens that Black Monday adds up to 33 in the child, another main cipher. So they always have these things that the things, what they call it and what the name becomes famous for is always something that fits with a number that they like. So Jesus lived on earth for 33 years. Is that part of the reason they like 33? That Satan wants to try to copy, to try to, Israel is on the 33rd parallel that runs across the earth. 33 degrees and free. What's that? I'm going to have to go, Lynn.
CDC,
If you got something real
the
quick, but go ahead.
CDC is also on the 30. The CDC is also on the 33.
Thank you. Very good point. Yeah, that fits perfectly. So yeah, the CDC is on the 33rd. And then we saw the 33-year astronomical cycle. Well, they're really into this 33, as we've seen. 33 pillars on their big building, 33 feet high, and all the other aspects in their 33rd degrees. The highest degree you can get is 33. What happens when you take 33 years, 33 months, 33 weeks, and 33 days? So this guy up here in this video, Lambda, you take 33 years, that adds up to 12,053 days, with a little bit of change. You don't count the change. 33 months is this many days, 1,004. Again, don't count the change. And then 33 weeks is 33 times 7, so that's easy. 33 days is 33. So that gives us a total number of 13,321 days. And then you just drop off the change. So then when we look at the date of the Black Monday crash that caused almost 2 trillion in losses, and see if this was a random date or if it was connected to anything. And remember how Black Monday adds up to 33. They're in that. So what happens 1,330 and 321 days after this Black Monday? Since you would think that they would code something that's exactly 33, 33, 33 from that. Well, here we go. So you can see here's Black Monday and is 10/19/87, right? October 1987. And it's 13,321 days to this date, April 8th, 2024. Who can remember what happens on 4/8/2024? Anybody? Well, it just happens to be the date of something we've studied in previous studies. Hint, the date happens to be another Monday that could also be called a Black Monday. Drum roll. What happens 33 years, months, weeks, and days after the infamous Black Monday stock crash? And the answer is
Another stock market crash.
it's the date of the second Great American Solar Eclipse.
Yeah, yeah, I remember
Goodness.
seeing that down there.
So they coded in their 33 stock market crash to be on the date of another Black Monday, which happens to be April 8th. Now, I'm not saying that's, well, in a way, it is a Black Monday because it's the blackening out of the sun on Monday, April 8th. So in my thinking, something could happen on Monday on this April 8th. And of course, as we get closer, the media will probably pick up on it that it's this great American solar eclipse. Hard to say if they will or won't, but there could be something big happen on that date if the Illuminati has plans to crash and burn. But either way, I think God is showing that during this period of time, there's big changes coming in the America that we knew. We're starting to see it before our eyes. And this goes back to what Jesus said in the beginning, beware of the leaven of Herod, because Herod would say, hey, don't worry, we're going to rise up and take back this land. God bless America. We got these political guys and we're going to ride our horse, or we're going to join a militia. We're going to take them down. But no, the beast, it says in Daniel, it just crushes and crushes nations. Now, God has plans for his bride, for us. And so that's what we want to focus on is the things that and promises of the Lord. But I think it's also good to see that things are happening that are way beyond our control. They're bringing in these states, they're actually building apartment buildings for these in whatever you call them, illegal immigrants.
Mhm.
And they're giving them 2 years free rent in these apartment buildings that they're building. And I saw a Biden lady spokesman, and she's saying, right now we're asking people that can take in an immigrant family, if you've got an extra room in your house, but she said, and this may be a requirement in the future. So they're wanting to mess things up so bad. And, this is all, there's no way you can fight against it in the natural. They own everything. They own the media, the corporations, the militaries. And so it's only in the Lord that he is going to rise up and put a death blow to this beast. And so that's what our focus has to be on. So anyway, I thought that 3333 was pretty amazing,
Mhm.
and how that crash hits exactly on the second of the black, that is a Black Monday. I don't know if August 21st is a Monday.
April 8th. Yeah, no.
But yeah,
We
April.
got to see a little bit. I mean, the sun darkened a little bit on in 2017. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, coming
Mm.
across Washington, it should, well, it was in
Yeah.
Oregon, but yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So
So this one, I
interesting.
think, will come across where John is, if I'm remembering right, April 8th, 2024.
Oh yeah, you might be able to see it. And where does it go from there? It goes through New York State, doesn't it?
Could be. I haven't
Oh my
really.
gosh, it does. If you follow the line, it goes right
Yeah.
through central New York where my family lives.
Wow, scary.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, that will be interesting.
And remember in the book, oh, what's her name? Ayn Rand,
Ayn Rand,
Atlas
Atlas
Shrugged.
Shrugged. Mhm.
They say that they will have their fulfillment. And remember in that book, which she was a Rothschild, uh, maiden or affair or whatever, but she got in and got information right from Rothschild. But in that
Mhm.
book, all the corporations and all the things, they all kind of played dumb, like, oh, golly gee, everything's falling apart and we don't know what to do. But it was all by design. And then they said that they would have the fulfillment. I never read the book, but this is just what I've heard, that when the lights go out in New York, that's when we have our fulfillment. So that's really interesting, Bonnie, that if this is a part of that, this solar eclipse ending over New York and then heading out into the sea.
Yeah, it goes right through New York State.
Wow, yeah, I never caught that.
Interesting.
So
Crazy.
yeah, well,
It'll be
go
it'll
ahead.
be interesting. It'll be interesting.
And
Maybe
speaking
we'll
of,
have an alien invasion on that day.
yeah, something fake.
Something weird. Yeah.
Ugh.
Some kind of false flag.
Yep, I got a feeling. I mean, it may
This was
not
very,
be, but it is
yeah.
during this period that I think we're going to see all the things. I think there's more to come of
hmm
how America is going to change before our eyes during this period, and that's part of the X. It's like, God is removing his hand that he's had upon the nation,
Right.
but he's still going to protect his people, and he has plans for us. And so we have to
hmm
hold to those promises of God, that by these
Right.
precious promises.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
good
going
to
to
be
be
aware. I don't like to focus on all this stuff, but it's good that we're not be ignorant of their devices, so that
right.
we're not surprised when they pull stuff.
Might want to get your money out of the stock market too.
I think, yes, that's a good advice. Anybody that has an IRA, or you might at least put it on the sideline for a couple of weeks ahead of that
Yeah.
time.
hmm Yeah. It's going
We
to be
may
interesting.
we may go to a new money. They're talking about that all the time, that there's so much in debt that they and of course they're going to say, oh, golly gee, we got to take care of all these people from other lands that were flooding into America and into the UK and all these places. But so they're going to have all kinds of new rules that we never would have dreamed of. And then of course we got the transgender and things that we never would have even believed 20, 30 years ago. Now it's just being flooded in on every way.
Yeah. That's for sure. This is really good, Al.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate that.
Really good.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay, well, I'm after time, so I better close, but let's say a little prayer and pray for Yvette. I don't know if Yvette's still here, but Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your word and for your warnings and for your signs in the heavens that you've given us, Lord. And we just thank you for your word, Lord, that you will see us through. In Jesus' name, we need each other. We need each other's help. And just each one in the body, Lord, we need. And we pray for Yvette tomorrow, Lord, that you would protect her and guide the doctors for this thing that she's going through, whatever it is, Lord. We just ask in your holy name that for your
Yes,
protection upon her body, Lord. Send
Yes.
your angels, Lord, to keep any harm away from her in Jesus' holy
Yes.
name.
Yes. Amen.
Yes.
Jesus. Yes,
Amen.
Lord.
Yes,
Thank you,
Lord.
Jesus.
We thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Al.
Oh, thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
You're very welcome,
That's a
dear one.
lot of information.
I barely got it through, but yeah,
Good job.
thank you. Thank you. So, well, I'll say goodbye to everybody, I guess.
Oh, nobody can see me.
There's
Bye.
Jeannie. Boy, we got almost everybody. Lynn,
Yeah.
oops, Lynn disappeared, but we got
It's nice
everybody.
to hear Lynn again. I didn't see her, but it's nice to
Yeah, she made a great comment. I appreciate that.
yeah.
What did she say? I don't know if
The
I heard that.
CDC was also on the 33rd peril.
Oh, that was Lynn.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, guys.
And like Bonnie's sign
Supper.
says, in all things give thanks. So that's the message of the day right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. Sometimes it's hard to pull that all out of there.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye,
God
everybody.
bless you all.
Thank you.
Lord bless.
Thank you.
Okay, good
God
night,
bless you all as well.
Bye.